Hello, everybody. I'm Douglas Calvin, and welcome to the Time Excellence Show, where we maximize your time to make a difference. Today is a great show, and I want to get on with it. First off, I want to give you the contact information, douglascalvin.com. You can see it on the screen if you're looking at the video. If you're listening by audio, it's douglascalvin.com. That's where we've got more free content. Plus, it's a way you can get in touch with me if you wish. Today, we're continuing our business series. This is episode 2, Solutions to Stalled Metrics. It's one that I really get excited about. So hang on. This is going to be what I hope to be a really interesting session for you. You know, last time we talked about a variety of things, including the need and the want for everyone to make a difference in business. I mean, that is what we all, I think, at some point at least desire, is we really want to make a difference. We want to, if we were not to be there in the future, we would hope that someone would recognize that the business had improved in our time, or looking last year to this year, they could see the improvement in that. We also talked about obvious solutions that some people use, but give what I'll call temporary results. Those are the ones that we all try and don't give us those long-term results, which is what the subject today is going to be about. And we also talked about that time is often the center of solutions that we need to explore. Time, if we focus on that, gives us a lot of benefits. It simplifies the initiatives. It's a leadership opportunity. It improves response time. It reduces cost, and on and on. And one of the big benefits that I like to not ever forget is it drives employee engagement and motivation. That's huge today. That's something that we always are challenged with in businesses. How do we get people engaged in where we're going? How do we get their interest? How do we get their extra effort? And most importantly, how do we get their participation in those solutions? So we talked about that last time and really set the groundwork for today's discussions. Possible solutions to those stalled metrics. I mean, what would we think about as a possible solution? Well, there's been programs of the day, and we've all been burned by those possibly in the past, that they come and they go because they're really not effective. They didn't have the advantage of lasting over time. They just didn't deliver. Sometimes they're just overly simplified. You know, humans tend to gravitate towards simplicity, and I'm all for simplicity. In fact, that's one of the key guidelines that I like to focus on is simplicity. But when we get oversimplistic, it becomes ineffective. And those oversimplified solutions, just walk the office or walk the factory floor and you will really save millions. Well, that's oversimplified. Walking the floor and talking to people is good, but with that, we need a little bit more structure and a little bit more normally to get the job done. If that does it for your particular problem, then it was probably a pretty simple problem. It was an obvious problem and you didn't need more. All the better. We've all been told about those solutions of software. Oh, if you just had this software, your troubles will be fixed. And with those usually comes significant cost in equipment, software, and human resource time. Software should lag the improvements in my experience. It should benefit us in a simplified solution, but not drive the solution. And the software people would like to consider that otherwise, but I think you get the idea. If you want to spend more big dollars, you know, there's some big consulting opportunities out there where you can have lots of man hours coming your way turn the apple cart upside down and get some quick spent dollars and get some results. The challenge in that is always when they leave or when the money runs out, whichever comes first, did it stick? Did it stay with you? And that's why the most effective approach, in my opinion, is one that's more long-lasting, it's quicker to the solution, and it doesn't depend on lots of labor hours. For people that probably aren't the top experts in the company, you would want the top experts in the company, and that's what we want to consider as a better solution. The old focus on one thing and fix it. My goodness, we've got inventory problem. We're just going to focus on that, and we're going to get that thing solved. Well, if you over-focus, guess what's happening on what you're not focusing? It's going the other direction. So we're focused right here on this bullseye, and over here we've got other metrics just going all which way because we are focused right here, trying to muscle that in. So the oversimplified focus on one thing often doesn't get it. So these are some solutions we've tried, and we get some traction, but eventually they run out. We talked last time also about some quick fix things that tend to run out, ways to get short-term goals. And today we want to really think about solutions that have staying power, solutions that can get us where we need to go and get us in pretty good shape. All right, so what do we look at when we say concepts that work? What is something that works? That is what we're looking for. It's always something. And we don't like to be the R&D site, the alpha or beta test site on a new concept. We want proven solutions, but then again, we want to have something that is going to stick with us and stay there. So let's just take a look at that for a moment. So what improvement concepts work? Well, for many years, I've been involved in waste reduction initiatives, and they fall under a typical word such as lean or flow or lean flow. You'll hear TPS. Toyota did a lot of work in this years ago, and the Toyota production system, the buzzword TPS, gets thrown around. But this whole thing of reducing waste has some concepts that are just so effective and so great that, you know, it's one that I really propose. In fact, I propose this one to be the foundational concept. Also, you might hear the word Six Sigma, and that's tied to defect reduction, good, bad. Defects are everywhere. Deming has his PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act steps. There's a whole myriad of other gurus, consultants, concepts that are out there. In fact, it gets somewhat confusing. And that is something that can be considered, and that defect reduction can get pretty complicated. It uses a lot of statistics in it, and you don't have to be around it too long, and you're going to hear about those statistics. Well, I've been around that for quite a while too. I'm a master black belt in this. And what I find is, in general, it's an overkill in general, but specifically targeted, it can be extremely effective. So how do we balance this waste reduction, defect reduction, and get the job done and get it done fairly quickly without having to really impact the organization in too many negative ways? And so that leads us to concepts that we want to stand on. And these have been proven to be effective. Back in the day, in the late 80s, early 90s, there were arguments. Does this work? Does this not? You don't hear that much anymore. You hear people say, I don't want to use it. Well, that's a different question. Does it not work? It really, really works, and people in general like it. But, and here's the big but, there are some headwinds. The implementation and the results tied to that have headwinds in many companies. And I've seen it over and over and over. And you ask yourself, well, why haven't more companies adopted it? Like some really, really, really get behind these and push them through and force them through. But how do we really use these concepts and get them into all parts of a business very simply? Okay, so what is the headwinds that I'm talking about? Well, first off, leadership commitment is sometimes a challenge with that. It just sounds like a program. If I come in and use those words and say, we're going to do lean, we're going to do lean flow, we're going to do flow XYZ, we're going to do flow sigma, all kinds of names are out there. We're going to do Deming. The management first response is, whoa, that sounds like a program. In fact, it's been such a challenge over a long time that Jim Womack, if you recall, he wrote Lean Thinking back in 1996. Well, he recently reflected on that. And he said this: I often tell managers to avoid the use of the word lean if it causes problems. Well, I agree with him. I don't care what you call it. And in a little bit, we'll find out that the name that I like to use is time excellence. I don't care. It could be any other name, but the key is to get the benefits and get the principle in our businesses. It's a challenge for leadership to sell. The first time leadership comes up and says, I'm going to do initiative X, all of a sudden the eyes are rolling. Oh, here it's going to be come and gone a year from now. We won't even know it was here. We just have to survive through it. And the other challenge is it comes from the technical areas of business, and it tends to be overcomplicated. Both Lean and Six Sigma come from the manufacturing engineering, and statistics, data-based areas, and a lot of the departments, that's somewhat complicated. Yes, people try and do different levels of training. They try and simplify it for some and complicate it for others, but the language is still somewhat complicated. The employee understanding, all the buzzwords are everywhere. And you'll notice I try not to use the buzzwords. I'll use them if it need be, or if I get a question about them. But really the buzzwords add no value. It's just another conversion I've got to do mentally when common language would do the case. And without other deep levels of training, sometimes the employee understanding is just challenged with that. And thirdly, because of those two, there's a high implementation cost of training, flying people around, etc. And I'm making some broad brush summaries, but really overall, I think you've all seen it somewhere in your career that these initiatives do have these type headwinds. And finally, I've seen so many times that handing off the expertise to local teams is difficult because they didn't really fully understand it, or it was so complicated it couldn't keep on. And those efforts rapidly decrease when leadership changes and they don't understand it, and we go right back to where we came. So those are the traditional headwinds. There's others, and in your business, I'm not telling you have these, but you've probably seen evidence of this or heard others say it, and that's what I want to really focus on, is those situations. All right, so how can we be effective? Knowing what we've just talked about, how can we be effective? So I would suggest that we would take the proven concepts, those proven foundational things that work, and simplify them. Simplify the explanations. In fact, if we do that, we find that there's a win-win with the employees and with everyone, that we can use those same concepts very easily at home. We can use them in our community. We can use them in nonprofits. We can use them at work and use them very effectively if we will talk in simpler terms. We would really like a step-by-step approach. And some of these initiatives have, I call it the pile of tools, and you get given, 50 tools, and these go on, And which ones do we pull out when, and how do we use them? And I'm confused. I don't know what to do. And how does one feed the other? And the people like a step-by-step approach, and a simple step-by-step is really effective. Common words and phrases. Use something I understand already. If you have to explain it, it's too complicated. That works for leadership. How often have you as leaders tried to get something across, and once you've started too complicated, you have to talk 4 times longer to uncomplicate it? When if you had found the magic words to just really simplify the look, we'd have been much better off then. And I think all of us have lived through that. Remove the buzzwords, get those out. They don't add any value. And think of the win-win. When we go after these improvement concepts, we've got to consider, how will you win? Can I use this at home? If I do hit the goals, how will each segment of the stakeholders benefit? Okay? And the technical training is still needed, but save it for those groups that will actually use it, those few, and train them on it doing it. It doesn't add that much value to train them in a class, and at the end of the week or a month later, you ask, well, I didn't really understand it. But if we use it and we get trained there. Now, I know everybody uses a piece of these, but if you really look at what's out there, we're a long way off from these type solutions. And finally, if I had a nickel for every time in a leadership meeting I heard, well, that decision, that just makes sense. And that's how people think. So I think that the right concepts brought in to a leadership and a employee relationship can be convincing if it just makes sense. Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's obvious. In fact, it's so obvious. Why'd you tell me? Well, you're not doing it that way, but let's just restate the obvious. So the that makes sense test, I find, is really beneficial. Now, if I take all those concepts and put them under something, we got to call it something. And time is at the root of many of our challenges in business and even at the home, but time is a lot of it. Then time excellence, we want to be excellent with our time, is a way that we've found is very effective to communicate that. And it's not threatening. I can say time excellence and everyone kind of says, oh, wait, I kind of get that. Yeah, time excellence. We want to be excellent in the way we use time, and time is everywhere. Time is in our businesses, and that becomes very, very beneficial. And at the highest level, time excellence involves 2 pieces. One is maximizing your time in your situation, your capabilities, your resources, your marketplace, your headwinds in the market. Maximize that the best you can and make a difference to those metrics and to those employees and to those shareholders. Make a difference. And that at a very, very high level simplifies the argument so most can understand and start with a very positive place. All right, summarizing. We really want concepts that work as a starting point, and I will suggest that it's been proven that waste reduction type initiatives work and defect reduction type initiatives work. I would also say that these have headwinds in the implementation and adoption in many, many, many companies and in some cultures. And I've done this around the world in many languages. I didn't speak the languages, but the people did, and we worked together. And the simpler you make it, the more you can get through those cultural and those language barriers and be effective with your initiative. You can get leadership commitment, you can get employee understanding, you can get cost reduction if we accomplish that, and we can hand off effectively if we can really accomplish those and put them in a very usable manner. All right, this allows us then to use our organization's time the best way that we can. As a leader, that is really a simplification that is so true and so focused that I would like you to just keep considering that as you go forward and go through these videos and keep thinking about the actions that you're going to take or not take. All right, so what's the action for this video? Well, think about what barriers you've experienced in improvements efforts in the past. And what I'm saying correct in your experience, or am I flat wrong? It's a decision you can make. But if any of this seems to make sense to you, I would encourage you to keep watching, keep listening, keep thinking, and start building a vision for the future of your business. And then after you've done that, watch episode 3 that follows this, that we're going to build on this and talk about results. How do we get results with this? All right, that's a wrap on the subject matter. You can visit us at douglascalvin.com. We can be reached at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and you can get those little click buttons. Go to douglascalvin.com on the top right. And up in the right corner is 4 little buttons up there, and just click on those and they will do nothing but take you to those sites. And if you received any benefit from this, if you want to share with us, if you want to really help others to see this content, do something, do a comment, do a share, do a retweet, depending on where you're at. Friend it, thumbs up it, click on it, comment, do something in a social media environment, because that helps it get the news feeds. That helps it go out to others that may be looking for key information like you've just received. All right, I'm Douglas Calvin, and I want to thank you for participating and for listening to our Time Excellence show today. And remember to maximize your time to make a difference. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.